We begin with the latest from the Middle East. Israeli forces have raided the biggest functioning hospital in Gaza. Staff at the Al-Nasser hospital in Gaza's Khan Younis say the medical complex was hit by direct fire, after which Israeli ground forces troops stormed the premises. Panic struck those seeking shelter as well as patients who lined the smoke-filled corridors. A Palestinian doctor shared footage from inside the hospital during the raid where gunshots could be heard while injured patients were actually being treated. In the video, the doctor is heard warning others to take cover from the gunfire. Israeli soldiers killed a patient and wounded 6 others in the complex. Medics warned that the hospital was operating in near impossible conditions.
The moments of the past night were very difficult. The strikes were so intense that they reached one of the patients' rooms. The orthopedic department has been completely destroyed. The entire complex was in chaos. A little while before this, a quadcopter attacked us in the conference room. There were doctors and nurses during their breaks between their shifts. The quadcopter fired at them randomly.
Now, Israeli Defense Forces say the raid was precise and limited. In fact, they go on to say that it was based on intelligence that Hamas fighters were using the complex and may have kept hostages there. The Israeli Defense Forces claim they have captured dozens of terror suspects in the raid.
We have credible intelligence from a number of sources, including from released hostages, indicating that Hamas held hostages at the Nasser hospital in Khan Younis, and that there may be bodies of our hostages in the Nasser hospital facility. Hamas systematically uses hospitals as terror hubs. According to intelligence assessments and information we gathered on the ground, over 85% of major medical facilities in Gaza have been used by Hamas for terror operations.
Now, Gaza's health ministry says Israeli forces were continuing to isolate the 2 main hospitals in Khan Younis. They say sniper fire at Al-Nasser hospital had killed and wounded many people in recent days. Israel maintains that it does take steps to minimize civilian casualties and accuses Hamas fighters of hiding among civilians, including in hospitals and shelters. Now, Gaza's authorities say the raid displaced people and families of medical staff who were sheltering at the hospital. Around 2,000 Palestinians arrived in Rafah from the Nasser hospital.
I left with my husband, he's blind. I was doing kidney dialysis. They destroyed the wall at us as well as doctor's room. They ordered us to leave and fired at us. They fired bombs and rockets on our heads from the top. They demolished the building.
I was in Nasser hospital. They besieged us for 5 to 6 days. No one was allowed to enter or leave. The quadcopter was shooting and there were snipers.
Now, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have been driven out into Rafah. The city near the Egyptian border now hosts more than half of Gaza's population, with the displaced crammed into less than 20% of the total territory. Speaking to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, U.S. President Joe Biden warned against launching an operation in Rafah without a plan to keep civilians safe.
We continue to believe that under the current circumstances, without a credible plan, as the president said, to account for the more than 1 million Palestinians that are down in Rafah, make sure that they have a place where they can be safe and secure and out of harm's way. Without that credible plan, a major operation in Rafah would be a disaster. We agree with that. And we're continuing to talk to our Israeli counterparts about what that plan might look like.
Regional tensions are still running very high on all fronts in the Middle East. Israel is also possibly on the brink of war with Lebanon's Iran-backed Hezbollah, with nearly daily exchange of fire at the border. And in the Red Sea, the Houthis are stepping up attacks once again, firing missiles at a British ship in the Gulf of Aden. The Houthis, also backed by Iran, say their campaign will not stop until there is a ceasefire in Gaza. And on the diplomatic front, efforts to secure a ceasefire in Gaza entered a 3rd day, but the talks between the different sides seem to be making very little headway. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the talks can move forward only when Hamas drops its delusional demands. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.